Get ready to experience one of the most exciting and mysterious stories ever told. A mother, desperate for her daughter's terminal illness, receives a sacred object that has been missing for decades. What seemed like a simple rosary turns out to be a lost key between heaven and earth. The cure has arrived. But this also had consequences. For more than 70 years, the Vatican has kept this secret. Now it has been revealed through the hands of a child. Watch it till the end. You won't forget this story. Subscribe to the channel if you want more real stories with emotion, faith, and mystery. Tell us in the comments, do you believe in miracles? You are never ready to hear that your child is going to die. You can repeat it out loud 1,000 times. Tell yourself that you will be strong, even close your eyes and pretend that it is just a nightmare. But nothing prepares the mother for the doctor's blank stare, the hopeless voice, the papers she has to sign before the end. Her name is Chiara, my daughter. The name means light, but in that frosty December in Rome, everything around it seemed dark. There was only 1 week left. That's what they said. The tumor has spread, Mrs. Lombardi. You no longer respond to medication. Get ready to say goodbye. But how do you prepare for the funeral of a 9-year-old child? How can you separate yourself from someone who is still waking up calling you in the middle of the night because they are afraid of monsters? The truth is that I no longer knew if monsters were in dreams or in reality. I was a nurse before all this. I worked at the Santo Spirito Hospital for 20 years. I saw a lot of pain. I saw many deaths. But I would never have thought that my daughter, my Chiara, would be a number in the statistics I filled in. The injections no longer worked. Morphine just slept between the screams. Her skin became thinner every day, like paper. I could see the bones of the face. And the worst part, he stopped smiling. It was then that on a rainy night, one of those when Rome seems to be sinking into fog and silence, someone knocked at my door. It was exactly 23:47. I opened it with my heart in my throat. Maybe I was waiting for the building manager, a notification from the clinic, or even the police. But there was no one. Only an old, soaked leather envelope remained on the doormat. There was something inside that I could never explain. An old rosary, almost black from age, with small reddish dots stuck between the beads. And a note, handwritten in a strange Italian language, in crooked letters. Take this to the child before midnight. He will be touched by something he does not understand, but accept it, because faith doesn't need logic. It is signed only with a hand-drawn cross. It was not the general symbol, it was the papal cross, triple. It is identical to the one used by the ancient popes. My body froze. At that moment, any rational person would have thrown the whole thing in the trash. But I was no longer rational. I was a mother, and desperate mothers will do anything. I ran up to the room. Chiara was awake. He didn't sleep properly anymore. The sunken eyes, the skin stuck to the cheekbones, the fragile arms stretched out on the white blanket. When he saw the rosary in my hand, something changed in his eyes. I don't know how to explain it. It wasn't faith. This is an acknowledgement. It's hers, Mom. I saw this rosary, in my dream. I swallowed heavily. He held out his hand. I put the rosary between her fingers. As the metal touched his skin, I heard a sound in the air, like a crack, and the lights in the room flashed. The clock showed midnight. Chiara closed her eyes. Then he started sweating heavily. It was as if something was boiling in him. I ran for the thermometer, but before I touched it, I heard a loud noise. The crucifix fell to the floor, and on his chest, where the rosary touched him, a scar appeared, in the form of a papal cross. I'm not a woman who faints easily, but at that moment I had to lean against the wall to keep from falling. This clue, it wasn't a burn, it wasn't a bruise. It was as if it would have been sewn directly into the meat, but without any stitches. Chiara didn't cry. He didn't scream. He took a deep breath with a delicate voice, almost as if would be at peace. Oncologist at the Children's Clinic of Gesù. He answered in a tired voice, as always. Mrs. Lombardi, Please, I told you before. I can't say anything. It looks different, I shouted. Something is happening to my daughter. Currently. Come here. On the other side, there was a break. He mumbled something incomprehensibly, and then said that he was sending an ambulance. Don't move. Don't remove anything from his body. Wait. It was the quietest ambulance I had ever seen. There is no siren. Only the sound of wheels on the stones of the Roman pavement, like a whisper warning that something ancient is being taken back. A series of examinations were carried out at the hospital in the early hours of the morning. Collections, resonance, tomography. I expected anything, except what I heard in the morning. The tumor disappeared. It is not reduced. Missing. Chiara was still asleep, but his skin was already beginning to regain its color. The veins were no longer sticking out from under the thin hide. The smile slowly returned, even in a deep sleep. And what is most inexplicable, that scar on his chest. It seemed to throb slightly, like a second heart. The doctor went into the room and looked at me as I had never forgotten. He did not calm down. I was scared. Mrs. Lombardi, there is something we don't understand here. There is no explanation. Neither medical error nor clinical miracle. We document every image, and there is no way to do that. He couldn't have been alive, much less in complete remission. And the scar? He approached cautiously. It's not an ordinary scar. An infrared scan was performed. The heat emanating from his body from there, abnormal, as if something would be active. I swallowed heavily. Then Dr. Micheletti leaned over, looked me in the eye and said a sentence that still resonates with me today. The Vatican needs to see this. 2 days later, I was called to an address that I didn't even know existed. It was one of the buildings of the Holy See, behind the Apostolic Library. I was greeted by a man in a dark suit, with no name on the badge, who simply called me Mrs. Lombardi, and asked me to follow him. We stepped into ancient, silent corridors, where not even an echo dared to touch the walls. There was a cardinal inside. He is tall, imposing. His skin is aged like papyrus. The eyes of someone who has read more secrets than they should. Did you have the rosary? Was the first thing he asked. I nodded. And your daughter? Touched. He held it. He fell asleep with it. When he woke up, recovered. The cardinal folded his hands and looked at the ground. That rosary, it belonged to Pope Pius V, but he died decades ago. Yes, and he never left the secret archives of the Curia, until he disappeared, a week ago. My heart almost stopped. You say that? Someone took it and gave it to you? We are investigating. But what matters now, Mrs. Lombardi? Is that what happened to your daughter? Maybe the beginning of something much greater. And it is much more dangerous. I leaned forward, my heart pounding violently. What do you say? He looked up, and he said to me in a deep voice, Not all miracles come from God. I didn't sleep that night. I went home to Chiara, who was already awake, hungry as if I hadn't seen her in months, and with eyes full of life. The girl laughed. Laugh in the same voice as when there was no pain, no hospitals. Still only mother and daughter cycling along the Via Appia on sunny Sundays. But my heart didn't laugh, because fear, it was different now. At 3 a.m, the phone rang. I replied hurriedly. Mrs. Lombardi? Yes. Who speaks? Brother Tommaso. The cardinal asked me to come to the Vatican tomorrow. There is something you need to see urgently. Come alone, and leave the rosary at home. Before I could ask anything, he hung up the phone. The next day, I walked through the bronze gates as if I had stepped into another world. The air inside the Holy See seemed denser, less because of the weight of history, and more because of the silence burdened with unspoken things. They led me through corridors where time seemed frozen, dark marble, tapestries with biblical scenes, and tall windows where the light lazily penetrated, as if he too were afraid of what was hidden there. The brother led me to a thick wooden door. He didn't say anything. He just opened it and motioned for me to go in. It included the cardinal and 3 other men, a monk, a Jesuit and a theologian, whose eyes were too deep for anyone to live. In the middle of the room is a table. On top is a folder with a red wax seal. Name printed at the top of the page, Acta Miraculorum, Dothines. The case of Pius the Cardinal said, "What you're about to see has been buried for more than 70 years. Recorded a series of events that he called a continuous presence. He believed that he could intercede on the physical plane immediately after his death, but there was never any evidence of this. Until now." He pushed an old photo towards me. A doll wrapped in shawls, holding a rosary identical to mine. On its side is the image of the Pope himself, holding the object in front of the altar of St. Peter. This child was born with a terminal illness. The Pope was called to pray for him. 2 days later, the child was cured. The Vatican has never officially recognized the miracle, but the Pope wrote something in his private diary. He opened another folder and read, "The Lord has given me something. A fragment, a thread between the worlds. That rosary was blessed with my own anguish, and I left my intercession in it. Actively. I remained silent." "You mean to say, my daughter, was it healed by a dead pope?" "He was not cured, concerned." The theologian corrected him. "And what that means, we don't know yet. The mark on his chest appeared in another case. In 1949, a boy who disappeared months later. The body was never found." I felt my stomach turn. "What do they say? That my daughter is in danger?" The monk stepped forward and placed another document on the table. "We don't know, but there is something strange. After the episode with the boy, the rosary was sealed in a lead box, and a week ago it disappeared from the archives, before it is released, in his house." My hands were shaking. "You're suggesting that someone within the church? Did you put that object on my doorstep?" "We say," interrupted the cardinal, "that this miracle should not have happened, and now maybe we can't stop it anymore." That afternoon I came home and found Chiara playing on the living room floor. I drew something on a piece of paper. When I got closer, I almost let the world spin. It was a symbol, the papal cross, but there were more. Lines all around like an old seal, with badly formed Latin letters. I asked what it was. "That's what I saw, Mom. In the dream. There was a big door, and this symbol lit up in the middle. Someone called me on the other side." "Somebody?" "Yes, a man, dressed in white, but his eyes, he didn't flinch." 3 days later, I went back to the hospital for further tests. The doctor in charge took me aside. "I don't want to alarm you, but his body image changed. The cells multiply. Has the tumor come back?" "No, it's something else. As if would be transformed. Bone density increased. The base temperature is 2 degrees higher than normal. And the scariest thing of all, the pulse doubled, but it does not show any clinical signs. He is more active than ever. This is not a disease. This evolution." I swallowed heavily. "And what does that mean?" Hesitate. Then he said something I never thought I would hear from a doctor. "That means maybe he is no longer just a man." I returned home with the sound of that sentence still echoing in my chest. He is no longer just human. Who would say that about a child? My daughter, my Chiara, the same one who slept with a teddy bear a few weeks ago. Now he slept less, ate more, and said he had heard things, like a faint humming sound from underground. He said it wasn't scary. It was as if someone was calling him continuously, as if something... Varna. One morning I woke up to a burning smell. I ran to his room. Chiara was sitting on the bed, holding the rosary in her hand, and the crucifix made of aged iron glowed. He didn't burn himself. Of course, he played. When he saw me, he smiled. "Mother, he teaches you to pray, but not with words." I approached. I felt the warmth of that object in the air. The heartbeats. "Who is she, my daughter?" He only pointed to the ceiling, as if he knew I would never understand. That afternoon, I went to the same Holy See building in despair. I asked to see the cardinal. I was greeted in a hurry. They already knew. They were admitted. What happened? I asked. One of the monks pressed a button on the remote control. The front screen was illuminated by a security camera video. Chiara played in the hospital, alone. Suddenly he stops and stares at a white wall. And then, the wall trembles. The atmosphere is real. One of the paintings falls off, and a crack is formed from floor to ceiling. From nowhere, the video is interrupted. "That was 3 hours ago," said the cardinal. And that was not the only event. There was a complete blackout last night in the administrative building of the Curia. All computers crashed. All except for one. The one that was born in the 14th. Pius. What was published? A name. Written alone, on the screen. Chiara Lombardi. I felt the blood leaving my body. They say that... Did he do that? We say it's related to something we don't understand yet. And maybe we should never have touched it. From that day on, men began to follow me. They didn't wear Rihanna. They did not introduce themselves, but they were always there, leaving the hospital. On the corner of the house, one of them approached the bakery's line. He handed me an envelope. Inside there was only a photograph. My daughter was sitting on the bed, her eyes closed and the rosary in her hand. But what took my breath away was the reflection in the bedroom mirror. It was not Chiara's reflection. It belonged to an old man in white who reached over his head. On the back of the photo is a sentence written in blurred ink. "He is not holy." They forgot. I ran home shattered. I locked the doors and windows. I knelt on the ground and prayed like never before. And for the first time I felt fear of faith. That evening, Chiara had a seizure. He screamed, trembled, his body arched with pain, as if he were being pulled from within. I quickly took him to the hospital, but when the doctors arrived, he was already calm, with his hands on his chest. And a new scar appeared there, this time in the form of wounds. A doctor fell to his knees, cried. He said he had seen something similar in his childhood, in Poland, in the 80s. A boy with the same wounds. 3 days later, he disappeared. The clock showed 00:00. The next day I found the house broken into. Nothing was stolen, but everything was involved. The drawers were open. The pictures are skewed. The cabinets are wide open. And in the middle of Chiara's bed, the rosary. But it's not the same. It was clear. There is no blood, no rust, like new. And on it was tied a piece of aged parchment, with a single word in ancient Latin, oblivium, oblivion. That same evening, the cardinal called me. "We must talk, currently. Come to the old crypt of the basilica. Come alone." I walked. I was shaking a lot. The cold cut through Rome like thin blades. I walked through corridors where not even tourists enter. They led me to a crypt locked with 3 keys. Inside was a small room, lit by candles. In the middle is a rusty metal box with a papal coat of arms and a broken seal. The cardinal was waiting for me. "This is Pope Pius XIV, the personal ark of Pope Pius. In 1954, he closed it himself, and he opened it 2 days ago without permission. It contained leather notebooks, catacomb maps, and records in ancient languages. But one of them was delivered directly to me. Its title is La Bambina di Luce, the Daughter of Light." I started reading. My fingers were shaking. It was a diary, from a pope. Speaking of the visions he saw in his last days, he saw a child with brown eyes, pale skin, and a heart torn between 2 worlds. The girl born of pain, touched by something that neither God nor the devil could control. One detail cooled me down. If this child comes into the world before the appointed time, the gates will open. There will be a blessing and a destruction at the same time. The light burns if they don't understand it. I closed the book. They say, "Is this child my daughter?" The cardinal lowered his eyes. "We don't say so." Afraid. At this moment, panting, one of the monks entered. "Your Eminence, we have received confirmation. The photo has been leaked. It's on hidden forums. There are groups that are looking for the child. It's called La Portatrice, the carrier." The cardinal turned pale. "We have no more time. Mrs. Lombardi, he has to hide his daughter. We fled that same evening. The church provided a false identity. We went through old tunnels under Rome. During the journey, Chiara held the new rosary in her hand and said it was not hers. I asked him who it was from, and he replied something that paralyzed me. This was made to lock me up, Mom. So? They don't want me to remember. Let me remember what you told me. He looked at me, but his eyes... It was as if he had seen more than the room we were in. The next morning, we were in a simple house on the outskirts of Siena. The Vatican called it a white refuge, one of many secret places where persecuted priests in ancient times were hidden. Inside, there were only the bare necessities: food, a small altar, old books, and a mirror. Mirror covered with black cloth. "Never take it off," warned the brother, who handed us the keys. A priest put it there, he saw too much. That night, Chiara went to bed early, but I didn't know. I was reading the notebooks, and I discovered something that made me cool to the heart. Pius XVIII thought that before he died, he had transferred part of his soul to a reliquary, not out of pride, but to protect something that is yet to come, a link between heaven and earth, last chance, when the world was about to be lost. That reliquary? This was the original rosary, and then everything made sense. The disappearance, the miracle, Chiara's transformation. It carried within itself the last conscious fragment of a pope who had been dead for more than half a century. He was not just a miracle, he was the miracle. And the next morning he woke up quietly, pale. He only said, "It's near." "Who, my daughter?" "Whoever wants the reliquary." "Who?" He doesn't believe it. Before I could ask any more questions, we heard a voice on the roof. Steps. Then glass breaks. The house was broken into, and before I ran away with my daughter, I saw a face through the window watching me from a distance. A man, in a black reef, but with an ice eye. The house shook. The sound of footsteps multiplied on the roof, as if a dozen men were stepping in the same place at once. I didn't run. I flew to Chiara, took her in my arms, and turned the rear handle. It was closed from the outside. "Mom, it's no use," she said in a too calm voice. "You've already entered." That's when I heard it. No shouting. There is no command. Singing, songs in Latin, rigid, incomprehensible. A soulless melody. And between each poem a name whispered. One name. Pietro. I looked out the window. The man with the ice eyes was standing in the gate, in a dark hat, an old hat, and in his hand a rosary like ours. But hers burned black, like glowing coal. Chiara began to tremble. The air became heavier and heavier. The lights flashed. The crucifix on the wall fell off of its own accord. That's when I remembered. The mirror. I ran to him. It was still covered. My hands hesitated, but something in me, maybe despair, maybe faith, made me pull back the curtain. Nothing for a moment. But then, in the reflection, I saw the room differently. Chiara was not on the floor. It floated, surrounded by a golden light. A shadow appeared behind him. Not a demon. Papal figure. His face was covered with a veil, but his hand was stretched out. And behind him are dozens of other figures. The priesthood is silhouettes. Popes, saints, martyrs, everyone. Protecting my daughter. The knock on the door took me back to reality. Recovery. 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 3 sharp blows. Each of them is more powerful than the previous one. I took Chiara in my hands and ran to the cellar. The trap door in the floor was the only way out. I went down without thinking. The sound of the front door breaking open cut my heart out. Screams, steps, more songs. But down there, silence. Just the sound of my breathing. And Chiara's heart. Hit hard, beat differently. As if beating people was no longer enough. We walked through the stone tunnel, which was lit by torches that had gone out for decades. At every step, I felt their presence moving away, until after what seemed like hours, we emerged through a hidden opening behind a vineyard. We were safe, for now. but the fear did not go away. Because when we left, we saw a piece of paper stuck to the wooden gate. Search warrant from the Vatican. Signed with a name that has not been heard for a long time. Monsignor Pietro Sabatini, the name of the man with the ice eyes. If they took us to a new place, this time outside Italy, an abandoned monastery in the south of France. The monks who received us did not belong to the current church. They were part of an extinct order, Custodi Silenti, who, according to the archives, protected children characterized by inexplicable phenomena. They knew who Chiara was, and they showed me records that went back to the 15th century. Every child registered had a sign, a cross, a symbol, and, by the age of 10, they were all gone. Chiara was 9 years old, and he is afraid. During the night, I was invited into the chapel of the monastery. An old monk was waiting for me with a manuscript wrapped in a linen cloth. It was written by an anonymous pope between the 2nd and 3rd centuries. The church forbids it. He says that when the world moves away from the faith, a living bridge is created between spirit and matter. A child who carries the soul of someone who has died and asked for salvation. Pius XIII, he just closed his eyes. The child would have the strength to heal or destroy. They'll love it, or they will be persecuted. And before I'm 10 years old, I have to choose. Which world do you want to maintain? The world of faith or the world of reason? I couldn't speak. Chiara has to choose, keeping the faith alive, or let human logic erase miracles forever. The next morning, I received a call. It was the cardinal. I'm sorry, Mrs. Lombardi. They found out where they were, and they are not the only ones. Who else? There's something you need to know. Pietro Sabatini. He is not alive. In 1971, he was excommunicated and buried. In the same year that Pope Pius V, Pius wrote his last letter, a letter that predicted Sabatini's return, as a shadow. I swallowed heavily. Shadow? One of those who refused to cross. One of those who preferred to stay between the worlds, as parasites of unfinished miracles. I looked at Chiara, who was sleeping peacefully on the altar, and I understood. He was the last bridge, and he was the hand that tried to break it. The monastery seemed too quiet. The walls, covered with moss and ancient prayers, drowned out the noise of the wind. Chiara slept in a simple cell, surrounded by burning candles that the monks renewed every night. They said the light kept them away. I didn't ask who they were. On the 3rd night, he woke up differently. He is not afraid. With the goal. Mother, today I saw everything. What did you see, my love? He didn't blink. The place where it is, where light doesn't get in. Sabatini? The girl nodded. But he is not alone. There are others. Detainee, crying, but without a mouth, because they forgot how to pray. I get goosebumps from head to toe. But before I could say anything, he touched my face and added, and I saw him too. Who? The other. Which doesn't oblige me. We're just waiting, if I want to. Chiara drew a symbol in the dust on the window, a triangle with an eye in the middle, but the eye cried. And the next morning, the cardinal appeared in person. He was pale. He took a small box with him. He gave it to me. This box is the first to be used by Pope Pius XIII. It contains the last personal relic of Pius. He kept it a secret from everyone until his daughter's name came up among the documents of the forgotten miracle. I opened the box with trembling hands. Inside is an old piece of paper with curved handwriting. It was a prayer, but it's different. I didn't ask. I promised. Lord, if you give me a part of eternity, I will use it to keep your children on the threshold of the world. If it is not heaven, there should be no hell. At least there should be a bridge. Below is a name I've never seen before. Chiara Vita. That's the name, I whispered. Same as my daughter. The cardinal nodded. This is no coincidence. This is a prophecy. And now we have to decide. The prophecy demands a choice, but not the child's, from the mother. My blood froze. What? You must take him to the Damascus gate. And there. Say yes or no. Yes. What? to let it become what it was born to be. What if I say no? He took a deep breath. He's going to die. But the world remains as it is. Blind, slow, human. But if you say yes, faith is moved again. The miracles return. But with them, forgotten horrors. Bahitaostiyan on the road to Jerusalem was silent. I traveled with Chiara in my arms, as if she were still a baby. The charter plane landed at dawn. A group of priests were waiting for us in the dark. They didn't speak. They just walked. And they brought a candle. We climbed on deserted paths to the ancient Damascus gate. And there, on the stones of centuries-old blood and praise, Chiara stood alone. The wind was cut, but he did not tremble. He knelt down, and he whispered, "Here it is." The ground shook. The stones gleamed in gold. And behind us, the shadows have arrived. And there were dozens of them. Men with black revan, his faces covered with a linen veil, glowing rosaries in their hands, sewn tongues, but his eyes, pure fire, and in front of them, Pietro Sabatini. But it was something else. The body was no longer just human. It was as if bones had come out of the flesh. It was as if the light tried to escape from within, but it didn't succeed. "Hand over the bridge," he said in a double voice, "or walk on it until it falls." I positioned myself in front of Chiara, but he took my hand and whispered, "Leave, I know the way." He took a step, then another. He went to him, and he put the rosary back on his own chest. The symbol lit up. Then the world seemed to stop. Nendai! In the complete silence that followed, all the black priests fell. It was as if some invisible force had erased their souls from within. Each, like leaves, fall slowly. Sabatini finally knelt down. "He chose," he whispered. Chiara came closer and touched her forehead. A glow ran through his body, and with one breath it turned to dust. The cardinal, who was watching everything from afar, was crying. "The bridge is closed, but the way remains open." Chiara looked at me. "Well, Mom, can I be a child?" I fell to my knees and hugged my daughter. But I knew nothing would be the same anymore. 3 days later, we returned to Rome. Chiara slept on my lap during the flight, but her body gave off a different warmth. Smooth, constant, like glowing embers protected by a veil. It was as if he had now breathed in two worlds, what the eye sees and what the heart perceives. When we arrived, there were no journalists. There is no crowd. Only the sound of the eternal streets of the holy city. But something has changed. The Vatican was in mourning, not for someone who died, but for something that has been reborn. The cardinal received us at the Curia with red eyes and trembling hands. He did not speak as a priest. He spoke like a man. The bells rang of their own accord, at 3 a.m, and then the relics began to bleed. "Is it bleeding?" The man nodded. "Veronica's veil, tablets of St. Cecilia, the stone of the crucifixion, everything. It's as if something is saying, faith has breathed again." Chiara walked through the rooms as if she knew every corner. He stopped in front of the paintings, touched the columns, smiled at the stained glass windows. He entered one of the forbidden rooms where only cardinals can enter, without anyone stopping him. And inside, he found his own photo, a fresh picture. He knelt down, stretched out his hands, and the symbol glowed on his chest. Someone already knew. Someone foresaw everything. "Why my daughter, Cardinal?" I asked. "Why a child?" He looked at me with the weight of centuries on his shoulder. "Because adults spoil miracles. It is transformed into teaching. They create walls with light. But a child allows the miracle to exist. There are no explanations, no gains, no control." I swallowed heavily. "And now? He is alive now. But the world, he must learn to live with holiness again. And what does it entail?" Tsai Darien. 3 months passed. Chiara went back to study. I painted, sang, danced. There is no trace of the disease. There is no trace of the supernatural. But in every place I've been, Something has changed. A sterile woman became pregnant after accidentally touching her at school. A blind man on the train regained his sight when he heard the singing. The cross left in the trash can. He cried blood when he picked it up, but he did nothing. There was. And one day he said to me, "Mom, miracles don't come from me. They come through me. But I don't decide who gets it. I just hope so. And I keep silent. What are you going to listen to?" Smiled. Which no one listens to anymore. The hidden pain. Repressed faith. Requests that no one dares to say out loud. And then, on a rainy afternoon, he called me out to the porch. "Mother, he wants to talk to you." "Who?" He pointed to the sky. The world stopped for a moment, and slowly the light went down. Not like lightning, not like the sun, but as a presence, a warm breeze, sudden calm, and a voice in my chest. "You believed before the miracle, and that's why it happened." Chiara looked at me with tears in her eyes. "Mother, you were the first miracle. Today, my daughter lives in peace. He is not holy. He is not a prophet. He is just the bridge. And wherever you go, the world begins to remember the things you have forgotten. This belief needs no proof, that a miracle is not a spectacle. And sometimes, the impossible begins with the yes of a desperate mother. At the end of the story,